With the raging controversy surrounding the safety of genetically modified maize, mealtimes are now turning into moments of fear, anxiety and heated discussions. But they shouldn't, at least not according to scientists.
It's not some monster, it's still maize, except that it has this gene that helps it to fight insect pests.
This genetic modification, though, is responsible for the anxiety, especially now that the government has authorized importation of GMOs to stabilize maize supply.
Wale watu ambao sasa mimi nawaonea huruma ni vijana, sababu sasa hawa ndio wako kwa kazi ya kuzalisha. Na hii mambo unasikia kwamba inapunguza na hata inamaliza. Sasa hiyo ndio tatizo kubwa sana, ndio unaona mimi nakuwa na wasiwasi.
All this hullabaloo is misinformation, is propaganda. It's instilling fear in people. It has no scientific backup.
The introduction of the pest-resistant gene in maize to enhance its yields was considered a hallmark in the field of agriculture, which helped to boost food security. According to scientists, a GMO crop goes through laboratory testing, greenhouse conditions and confined field testing to ascertain that it meets all safety requirements before it's commercially released. Agricultural productivity experts are convinced that GMO is the way to go as the alternative.
If we stopped use of inorganic fertilizers in the world and opted for organic fertilizers or organic manures, the productivity will go down by over 100% and you can never feed people.
The Consumer Federation of Kenya is, however, of the view that food insecurity in the country is a problem of food distribution rather than food production. Sylvia Tibet, Citizen Live at 9 p.m.
willing to lead the cabinet in view, in the broad daylight in front of Kenyans to eat GMOs to satisfy the people that they are safe? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Rarieda Member of Parliament Nicholas Gumbo kicked off the debate when he sought a clarification on the government's exact stand on the importation and consumption of genetically modified food in the country. And Acting Higher Education Minister Professor Helen Sambili appeared blurry in her responses.
There has not been given any approval. Nobody has applied to bring GMOs to Kenya.
Much to the impatience of members of parliament.
The minister go direct to addressing the issues that Honorable Gumbo had sought. Like, are we importing GMO? Are we going to eat GMO food?
Sambili finally stated categorically that Kenya is not importing any GMO maize.
I have no doubt that the correct procedures and guidelines regarding importation and handling of GMOs shall be strictly followed, and it will be adhered to. There has not been any importation.
There was also friction when the MPs wanted to know which countries were using GMO food to feed their populations.
The countries that have, Honorable Gumas, the countries that are using GMO, there is the Republic of South Africa, the US, Egypt, Burkina Faso, and Brazil.
It's not about countries that are experimenting with GMOs. It's about countries that are currently using GMOs to feed their people.
Sambili then asked for time until Thursday next week to get more information on the issue and report back to Parliament.
I do not want to answer it now. I want to discuss with the Minister of Agriculture and then we give you proper answers. We are not doing politics here.
Speaker Kenneth Marende asked Sambili to assure the House that no GMO food will be imported before then.
Aaron Dykes here with Infowars.com and what I might dub Operation Inheritance, a move to get the word out in a viral activist campaign about the potential genetic Armageddon or genetic genocide, humanity's greatest threat. Alex and I have just done a very important video today. We want to get it out and hope it's one of the most seen videos ever on the internet. But don't stop there. You write your own articles, make your own videos. These topics are too important, and we have to figure out how a bunch of private cartel corporations are strong-arming us through GMO technology to take control of the planet and at the very least to put a lucrative patent on things, at the very most further down the line to depopulate us. Earlier today I did a video called GM Human Hybrids Pose Future Market for Organs, Babies, and Pharmaceuticals and more. It's all about how they're going to use these human-animal clones that are transgenically mutated in order to create patented specific products, whether it be organs, whether it be artificial life, whether it be certain drugs or certain synthetic proteins, all that these GMO companies have written and therefore get to profit off of, and anyone who's caught up in the dragnet has to at least pay them or suffer the terrible consequences we know exist for GMO crops and GMO animals, that they pose sterility. Sometimes it doesn't even show up until the second or third generation, which is way, way too late if we're talking about humans who reproduce, roughly at 20-year intervals, maybe 18, 16-year intervals. Point being, there's a big for-profit scheme going on that's also devastating to the human race, how they're using these biotech crops, so-called farming, for pharmaceuticals. But there's another important profit scheme also going on with GMOs, and that is this article from earlier in July. Monsanto and the Gates Foundation push GE crops on Africa. It's a total scheme that we also have to expose. The Gates Foundation is teamed up with the Rockefeller Foundation and Monsanto, as well as other big cartel companies who literally came from IG Farben, from the Nazi era, which also had American and other European collaborators. We're talking about Bayer, BASF. All these companies still work together. They all sit annually at the Bilderberg meeting, and they're trying to force GMO crops on Africa, which they happen to hold the patents to. It gets worse than that. The Gates Foundation has been accused of being a Trojan horse, opening the door for private agribusiness and genetically engineered seeds. We're talking about drought-resistant crops that they're going to give to Africa, so-called water-efficient maize, for which the patent is held by Monsanto. Also working with them is Syngenta, another biotech and big agro, big pharma company based in Switzerland, who also sit at the Bilderberg meeting. But there's more going on here, because the Gates Foundation gives money to the Rockefeller Foundation, and the Rockefeller Foundation reciprocates and gives money to the Gates Foundation. They're linked up. Just as the Rockefeller Foundation pushes vaccines worldwide, the Gates Foundation is all over Africa, hoping to get everyone vaccinated and reduce the population by 15%. Now the Gates Foundation is involved in pushing GMO crops, which are also a depopulation weapon. You heard about it in the 70s under Kissinger, how food is now a weapon, how they want to depopulate the third world, naming a number of specific countries in Africa targeted for depopulation. That memo talks about withholding food from countries, withholding distribution of food for those that don't meet population reduction quotas. Now we see a different form of withholding food, another form of food as a weapon, and that is these Trojan horse GMO crops, genetically engineered to sterilize, give cancer, and depopulate. Meanwhile, they're being forced on Africa as if it's part of a, quote, new green revolution, as if it's to save and feed Africa. Now, it happens to be the case that the Rockefeller Foundation was behind the original green revolution in the 70s, which for